Hello, welcome to Relatively Ordinary. I'm your co-host Betsy.
I'm Karl.
Welcome, Karl. How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Yeah, I like our new setup
Yeah, we got some fancy microphones, just moving up in the world,
and the lighting.
and some better lighting.
Mm-hmm. We're moving up a little bit.
Yeah,
Well, takes 25 episodes.
really brings out your glow.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. What else is new?
It's like up and down spring weather here. A
Mm-hmm.
couple gorgeous days followed by a crummy day today.
Yeah.
Just that, long purgatory of spring in Maine.
Yeah. Yeah. Mud season.
Mud season.
Mud season.
It was like last weekend we had the Masters on TV, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple days where the sun came out this week, and it was like, oh, spring's here, and
Yeah.
now it's back to like crud.
Yeah, just for a couple days. I try
Yeah,
not to look too far ahead in the forecast, and it hasn't been very accurate. The temperature, but it's like rain and cloud every single day, and it has not been that way. So,
yeah. Well, I think the Apple weather app has like dumbed us down on weather to the point where we look at like a little icon and we make a judgment about a day when in fact, we can have like six different days of weather in a single day here.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Weather.gov.
yeah.
That's a better trusted
I mean, you
source.
really have to like put some time into coming up with a accurate forecast for yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We had also had a good weekend. My mom was visiting. That was fun.
Yeah.
She did say that she appreciated how welcome she felt in our home.
Of course. Anytime.
Yeah, she got to chat with everyone, some quality time with the grandkids, with
Yeah.
you, with me.
It's always
So
good. Yeah.
yeah, and back in the state she used to live in not too long ago. So I think that was good.
Yep.
Probably filled her cup.
And I got to spend some quality time in the crawl space,
Ooh.
which I always love.
Yeah, who doesn't love the crawl
Yep.
space? Did you just like cozy up in there?
Fixing the sump pump.
Oh,
Yep.
oh.
That's
Yeah, you weren't just
one of
hanging
my
out.
one of my favorite activities.
Yeah. You are a middle-aged person if you are hanging out with the sump pump all weekend.
Yeah.
A
Um
middle-aged homeowner.
yeah. Well, I probably saved, $500 worth of paying someone else to do it. So,
Yeah.
time well spent. Even if I'm gonna have a sore back all week from being
Hmm.
hunched over in a
Yeah.
4 foot tall space.
All right. Well, let's not bore our listeners too much with our.
Who doesn't want to hear crawl space stories?
No,
Come
they
on.
do not.
Domesticity
This is
at its
boring.
finest.
I know. I'm
Um,
putting myself to sleep.
well, I have a good question for you. So it was
Okay.
inspired by last week's question about the Artemis astronauts.
Oh, who can't pronounce
Astronauts.
things now?
Yeah,
Astromots.
I astronaut. So I was thinking about how when I was a kid,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to be the world's first astronaut, paleontologist, professional baseball player. And I'm
Wow.
wondering,
Those three things would fit well together?
yeah, of course. I mean, we got to do something with your off season if you're a ball player, So, that I don't think I fully appreciated how long space missions are, though. So that was part of the problem there. But,
And the training,
but
the
the
rigors
passion,
of the
the
training.
yeah, no, that's for grown-ups. Um, so what ridiculous job did you have in mind when you were a kid? And if you say physical therapist, I'm gonna wring your neck.
No, gosh. I don't know if I thought about future employment much. I think I told you once that I thought I could, have a career in dancing. I think I got some good dance moves.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I remember this was your answer to one of our quick bite questions in an earlier episode, and the
Yeah.
question was something like, "What's something you thought that you were going to be good at that turns out you're not?"
No, but I'm gonna correct that. I'm gonna correct. Well, if I compare myself to professional dancers,
Sure.
I'm not that great. But I mean, if I had to get loose in a dance club, people might think I got some moves.
Yeah. Oh, you got moves.
I mean,
I don't know if I'd put it to the level of like professional, but you got some
yeah,
moves.
I know how to do the worm.
Yeah.
Maybe we take some video and we post that to
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
Instagram,
That'll
me
get us
doing the
some.
worm.
Yeah. That'll get us some listeners for sure.
That'll get some
Oh
attention.
my God. She was so boring, but now that I know that she can do the worm,
I mean, I got some breakdancing moves.
yeah. You're
Uh,
also really good at that Michael Jackson video game on the Wii.
oh my gosh, I was so good at it.
Yeah.
High scores
Yeah.
all around. You know, I used to love to sing and dance and put on little performances. And then I got into high school theater and realized I was mediocre, but still had fun.
Yeah.
That's probably the most outlandish thing, but
So
it's not as outlandish as
you're gonna be a
yours.
pop star. You're gonna be on Broadway.
Yeah, I don't know if I was going to be I don't know what a pop star was at the time was very different than it is now too. Like that was like Whitney Houston, Madonna.
Is it though?
I didn't really, yeah, but it felt sort of other, and I didn't think I wanted that per se. I
mm,
think what I was most interested in was like being on Broadway or something like that, because I did have opportunities to see professional level theater and musical
yeah.
shows. So I don't know.
So Broadway superstar,
Yes.
physical
No.
therapist,
Yeah. Hey,
PT by day, Broadway
yeah,
by night.
there are physical therapists who work with professional actors, actresses,
Yeah,
and
that
musicians.
could be
So
your shot. The Broadway dream is not.
no, I don't
It's
think I'm
not
going
dead
down
yet.
that avenue, but
Not dead
I
yet.
think that's pretty cool. So a lot of respect for those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you shared yours, so you don't need to elaborate. We know that
No,
was
we're done.
very
Hey,
outlet.
let's move on.
Okay.
Let's move on.
All right. So I have was influenced for our main topic because I recently watched the Manosphere documentary.
Mm,
And as you know, I kind of live under a rock.
yes.
And
Especially when it comes to the manosphere.
yeah, I'm such a feminist. I've just ignored that it even exists. And it is a small minority who is so eccentric in that space, who takes it to a very far reaching, dramatic presence. So I was doing a little more investigating after watching that. And, it was linked to some things that we've watched and learned about, and some names popped up that sounded familiar. But I thought it was really interesting when I questioned our son about some of these players, these social influencers. And he's like, yeah, I know those people. So
Yeah,
I don't
he's
know.
their target demographic.
Exactly. So I kind of want to chat about this, unpack this. And I'm curious your thoughts on things. So here's my intro. So there's this growing corner of the internet. I would say it's been growing probably before the pandemic. I would say the Me Too movement has probably triggered it, pushed it into high gear. So referred to as the Manosphere network. For those who live under a rock like me, it's a network of primarily influencers, content creators, and online communities that offer guidance on masculinity, success, and relationships. While some of it is framed in self-improvement, a lot of it is promoting misogynistic views, especially in some of the extreme cases, rigidity about gender roles. And there's also a trend, it's really focused, as you mentioned, towards adolescent boys and young men who are more vulnerable to this messaging, to promote toxic masculinity and misogyny. And a lot of what they're doing is leveraging their visibility and perceived success, because I think some of it's perceived, and wealth, which there truly is wealth behind it. Some of these men are millionaires, some are billionaires, often built through online platforms and monetized programs. So they're taking advantage of adolescents and young men to give them their money to promote their own brand, even going as far as online classes. One was a PhD, which stood for, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. it was so bad. I'd have to look it up, but I know it was this Andrew Tate guy, and he had a program PhD. It stood for something really misogynistic. It was terrible. I hear these things, and it's like in one ear I laugh at it and out the other, but I'm sure it bothers others even more than that. But they're through their wealth and their social media presence, they often expand their connections to circles of high profile public figures and even individuals who have political and cultural influence. So it's pretty scary stuff from that realm. I mean,
Yep.
that's where it becomes scary. I think the messages themselves can easily be chalked up to like, well, these are sad people, but their spheres of influence are really scary. And we watched that Netflix docu-series, or I guess maybe it was just series, not really a documentary, on called Adolescence. Remember, you really
Yep.
didn't like it because it was disturbing, and I
I
agree.
thought it was great. I loved it, but I didn't. I didn't. It's disturbing.
It's disturbing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's the thing. Like you loved it, but you sort of had to be in the right mindset to watch it because it was so disturbing. So I'm curious how you think these individuals, like Andrew Tate or the other one in the documentary, the Manosphere documentary, was HS Tiki Talkie. That was one that our son knew.
I don't know
Okay,
HST.
probably just as well. How they are shaping some newfound norms of masculinity, gender roles, and power, and thinking about it from a public health perspective. Like, when should we be concerned? Are you not concerned? I don't know. Just like big picture. And it's a lot of the media around this is coming from the UK and Australia and the United States. And we also know that, he was arrested in particular in Romania, but we know across Europe, probably Canada. And so it's global.
Mhm.
It's not just national. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that a lot of this comes from the fact that over the past, I mean, almost in the post World War II social order, and the relative peace and definite prosperity that we had in the United States and in the Western world, and then things that followed, like equal rights and the feminist movement.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, the world is this world is set up for women to thrive in a way that's never been available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, whether intentional or not, that has suppressed some forms of male expression. And when you think about, you referenced Me Too, and that was a really important moment as far as really pushing back in a well organized, highly visible way on patterns of toxic masculinity and sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of inevitable that there was going to be a backlash to that. And I think there's something very real, and we've talked about this a little bit before, about heightened male anxiety and insecurity in this sort of new world. I mean, the fact is, it's like, the girls and young women are thriving and boys and young men are struggling. I think in general in our society, that's the case. And I don't know, I think of the movie Fight Club, which I was one of my all-time favorite movies when it came out, and like in college and all that. And a big theme in the movie is sort of this like the feminizing effects of consumer culture, and how this group of kind of alienated men came together through exploring their kind of base masculine instincts by beating the shit out of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very insightful, to be honest. Like, I think that at the end of the day, there is something inside of men that is this sort of like aggressive, like I got to measure myself, and in fighting and war and physical activity, which is I think the genesis of a lot of sports.
Yep.
And
Rugby, football,
yeah,
hockey,
and it's not like,
yeah, because you mentioned male expression being suppressed, so those seem like healthy avenues. Sports, consensual fight clubs, I guess, but
well, and on the topic of Fight Club and specific people like Jake Paul and or whatever, Andrew Tate, right? They're like ultimate fighters, right? Joe Rogan he's from that world. So there is something like the rise of UFC, which is not my favorite sport. Like, I have a lot of, I'm like in awe of those people. Like, they're so badass and they're like incredible athletes, but I'm also like, literally the sport is just like bashing people's faces in. Like, that, it's a little more violent than I like to be.
yeah.
But I think it's not a coincidence that a lot of this is coming from this like hyper masculine, like, we're going to beat the shit out of each other world. And you don't hear it as much. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but like, you don't hear as much of this from like the NBA, the Major League Baseball, professional soccer, hockey, even football, which is like one of the kind of, penultimate like super masculine sports. Like, I'm sure there's guys that feel that way and do express it, but it's not the sort of predominant cultural message that comes out of it.
It's probably because they're also heavily scrutinized by the media.
Yes,
and
that's a big reason. There's a lot of endorsement money, and there's a lot of, they do a lot of things to try to appeal to more people.
Yes.
But
which half the population is women. Yes. We know probably more men than women follow some of these sports, but we know that.
But I think the point is that, like, if you look at, like, there are a lot of ways to have a healthy expression of, that aggression and masculine energy that are not destructive or toxic. So it's a little, I think it's very disingenuous for people who talk about, there's no way, like, culture is trying to like feminize men and put them in a box, when it's like, no, there's plenty of ways that like you can express that. It's just, I think it gets more to the like ultimate insecurity is that a lot of young men are growing up in a world now where, women are maybe going to be their bosses, and young women and girls have more, they're looking at their future in different ways other than finding a man and settling down and having their babies. They're rejecting the traditional role of the woman being sort of subservient to the man. And there's a lot of like, when women have sort of, sexual freedom to be able to like take contraceptives, have an abortion, or, just choose their mates, right? Put themselves out there and, be like, I like you, I don't like you. There's going to be certain men that don't get chosen.
Yeah.
And this is where you get into like the incel
Hmm.
piece.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't like that word. Something
well,
about that word
it
just.
this is what's interesting about like the whole, you know, manosphere thing is it really preys on insecurity and
Well,
self-loathing.
and that's it. In a vulnerable population who I think boys and girls, all individuals who are trying to wade through adolescence and young adulthood are already dealing with a lot of
Yeah.
stress and potential anxiety and depression. And then you layer this piece of it onto those who, and some of this was brought up in the documentary, but other literature that I was reading on this topic that, especially young men and adolescent boys who are dealing with stressors that are beyond what are maybe more typical or even becoming typical, like no judgment, but families where parents are divorced or single parenting by mothers are typically the single parent if there's single parent rearing, and the challenges with dealing with poverty, witnessing abuse, experiencing neglect, and all of that may exacerbate it even more. So those populations are perhaps even at greater risk for not only being recipients of this messaging, but feeling like this is their only option. And your brain's still developing and you're looking for maybe a male role model or figure that is going to provide some guidance. And there are a lot of terrible messaging that's coming across and false promises. So that's where it becomes scary. And interestingly, when I asked her son, like, do you know these people? Like, oh yeah, 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 I think this and that. And he was able to cite some of the bad things too. But then when I asked, like, well, what about, these messages or, these things that were said, he wasn't as familiar, but he knew about this person. And this is someone who,
Yeah,
I think he's got a pretty
because
good head on his
the
shoulder.
negative, the negative stuff is stuff that shows up in the adult media of people like us who are
Yes.
trying to figure out what all this means. So
Yes.
he's not consuming the media where they're criticizing. Like I think it was so did you hear was clavicular, I think is the dude's name. Was he in your
Ye-
he must have been his
Um,
name must have popped up in that.
Probably.
So he was on, I think it was 60 Minutes. I think they were interviewing him.
Okay.
And he's a young man who is like, his whole shtick is, it's called looks maxing.
Yes. And I
So,
was I was coming across that stuff.
yeah,
And for those who don't know it, this is scary too. So it's this they describe it as popular among young men, maximizing physical appearance ranging from healthy lifestyle, which is good, maybe eating well, working out, but to dangerous extreme methods like bone smashing.
yeah,
I don't even know what that is, but it does remind me of I read a someone's autobiography, and she was describing how her brother got involved in this subculture, and because he was shorter, he met with specialists in another country because it's not approved procedure in the US to lengthen his bones so that he could be taller. He had major infections and problems afterwards and ended up dying because of it,
yeah,
because he just wanted to be a few his
because that ain't how the body works.
because he just wanted to be a few inches taller and
Yeah.
grow his stature. Like, scary
No, so
stuff.
one of the things I saw in this clip, I didn't see the episode. I just saw social media clips of it, but he was talking about, you know, the advice he would give someone who was like a little bit shorter, and it was all about like getting a girl in bed,
Yeah.
right? And so he was talking about how like he was like, yeah, like you wear like tall like shoes with a big heel and make yourself taller, and then you like, you put your pants down, like like roll your pants down all the way, and there was like a specific thing about like hitching your pants at your waist to like I didn't like none of it didn't even make sense to me. It was like so absurd. And then he's like when you get the girl home, turn the lights off and lay down as fast as possible, and then she doesn't see how tall you are. And it's like what's interesting about this is it's
So
like,
dumb.
in there's the like the anxiety about like, you know, men like losing their like dominance and masculinity, but yet like so much of it's getting manifested as like the most like kind of frankly like feminine kind of things, like, you know, traditionally where we looked at like women being like obsessed with their appearance and like getting into eating disorders and like going to
Mhm.
like, you know, like you think about you know, someone who like takes 2 hours to put their makeup on every time they go outside. Well, like guys are doing that now.
Mhm.
And so it's just like this weird irony, and like your insecurity about not being manly enough is making you do things that like traditionally have always been
Mhm.
a woman thing to do. It's
Yeah,
an odd.
it is very odd. Well, no, I guess that's not fair to say. It's disappointing, I think, on both spectrums. Although I do appreciate when people really are proud of their appearances and know how to do their makeup and are very fashion oriented. They look beautiful, I think, for men and women. But I also don't think it needs to be baked into their everyday existence because that's a lot. And I
Well, it's like, why are you doing it, right?
yes,
If you're
yes,
if you're doing it because fashion is your thing,
yes.
and you
Enjoy the process.
celebrate the process and you celebrate, you know, how you're perceived because in the
Mm-hmm.
world because of how you present yourself in the world, then go
Great.
nuts,
Yeah,
right? Like that's great. But
that's
if
your
you're doing
freedom.
it because, you know, you're like, oh my God, if, you know, so and so sees me and I don't have my makeup on, like I'm going to be forever shamed and I'm never going to be, you know, that's just, it's just not mentally
Or
healthy.
you're not going to get laid.
Yeah. It's not mentally healthy. Like
Yeah.
that's a, you're not a healthy person.
Yeah, that was some scary stuff I got into. It's just interesting where this is all led to. And I think ultimately these influencers are just out to gain wealth. And I anticipate a day when they turn the corner to their 50s and 60s, if they make it that far, that there'll be a reckoning of, you know,
I've wasted my life.
I've wasted my life. What good have I done for the world? Maybe, hopefully, some shame
Yeah, I think
about
shame.
their messaging
I think shame
and
is retired.
the isolation because they're gloating like, oh, my one-sided monogamous
No,
relationship. I'm not married to her, but she has my babies, but I can, be with all these other ladies whenever I want and all my cars and the money. And you know what? When it comes down to it, yeah, you have this talent of swindling. What's that word you use when someone's grifting?
grifting.
Grifting,
Yeah,
of grifting. That's your talent. Congratulations. But guess what? That's only going to take you so far in the world.
yeah.
I
So
hope you also know how to invest your money wisely because that's probably going to stop at some point.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I so my pet theory on this
Mm-hmm.
is that this this sort of current of like male angst that and like I'm a little careful about the word misogyny because I understand, but I think that a lot of times like there's a like a frustration that you can't get laid that manifests as like nasty behavior towards women.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, yes, that is misogynistic because it's sort of like you're not looking at the person as a person, you're looking at the person as like, you know, an object. And if the object doesn't do what I want or behave in the way that I want, then I take it out of them. So it's ugly behavior. But I think that's been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's different now is because you have social media, because you have the ability to project out this message to the world
Mm-hmm.
and connect with other isolated people who are feeling similar things,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, for the first time in human history, there's like community, right? Like the sort of like, you know, shunned like beta wolf, you know, run to the litter type stereotypical person has always been kind of isolated from society. And now there's like a way to connect to that messaging in that community and have community around it. And
An unhealthy community,
sure, but like
a misinformed community.
an idea is like a virus. An idea, you know, it's not good or bad. It just like some of them can spread and some of them can't. Mm-hmm. And these people, these influencers we're talking about, have by sheer dumb luck stumbled on an idea that goes viral, that spreads. Mm-hmm. And then because there's this whole attention economy that's built on virality, mm-hmm. when that idea sticks and they start to get feedback in the form of financial compensation, mm-hmm. it reinforces that they must be doing something right.
Yes. Let's continue with the dumb
so
shit.
They just double down on it. And it's like, there's this weird feedback loop, and it's like a lot of like conspiracy theory stuff, you know, and we can go, you know.
Oh, a lot of that is,
and all that.
Yeah. Like, a lot of this is woven into that as well. Yeah. The conspiracy theories. It's all about getting clicks and likes and monetizing and capitalizing on it with no shame.
If
no integrity.
If you say some wackadoo wild shit.
Yep.
If you have a podcast and like this episode, we say some wackadoo wild shit. And the next episode, we just do our normal, like boring routine where we talk about sump pumps. Mm-hmm. Like, and we get 100 times more listeners and clicks on the first episode. Okay. Well, we're gonna it's an A/B test. We're gonna go towards that. We're gonna do that, right? Mm-hmm. And then you say you maybe push it a little further and go a little wilder. And if you're getting that reinforcement, you're gonna keep doing it. Yeah. And then it becomes, it's like, you know, there are, like we talked about, some of these guys had careers. They're like MMA fighters or like other things, but some of these people are just like kids who have done nothing in the world except have like a YouTube channel where they're spouting bullshit and it sticks. So now they're like, you know, like obviously this is a path to success in the world. So if you act like me, then you too can get rich. And if you don't, it's because you're flawed, not because, you know, it's sort of just luck of the draw.
The same messaging around we used to talk about when we were adolescents. It was the pro athletes and how they're role models, and they had a lot of influence in a different way. But it's always a shame when it's used in a negative way, right? Yeah. You know, you beat your wife, you become a drug addict, you crash your car and kill someone, right? There's a lot of power in there using it in a negative way. So you were talking a little bit about community, and I think about how this might influence community. You know, I think about schools, behaviors, peer relations, things that, maybe we're too old to witness because we're now considering it with our own kids. But I'm curious about how you think this might be disrupting perspectives, relationships for young adults and adolescents in our communities on a more like we thought about big picture and how these influencers are doing their damage, but like, what do you think's happening at that level? Have you seen or heard about things that are concerning, or do you think parents in the real world are stepping in a way that's protective?
I mean, I think it's, I think of, by the time I was our son's age, I knew I wasn't going to be a professional baseball player. I wasn't going to be an astronaut. And I wasn't going to be a paleontologist. And it certainly wasn't going to be that, 7-year-old's dream of being all three of those things at the once.
Nope.
But
I probably knew that at 7 myself.
yeah, well, you knew you wanted to be a physical therapist at 7.
That's not true.
Um, so I think that at the end of the day, you know, good kids who are grounded and go have a good education and good family home life, stable, all that,
Hmm.
they're ultimately gonna look at me like, oh, it'd be really cool if I was Mr. Beast, but
Yeah.
i'm
Who's a
probably
better role model?
i'm probably gonna be a boring lawyer or engineer or teacher or whatever, like my
Hmm.
parents.
Hmm.
So I think that like always, it's one of those things that people do overblow. It's like and we were the generation that our brains were rotted from MTV and we were never going to amount to anything, and
Yes.
here we are. So
Yeah. Yep.
um
Oh, MTV.
yeah, so like like Beavis and Butthead was gonna
Ruin
ruin
us.
ruin us, and
It was the real world, right?
yeah, the real world.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that was
so
very damaging.
like I think again we kind of always go back to like, it's like, is it really that big of a crisis? But um you know I, I do think that, and I've seen this a little bit. Like, I remember when I was in Fort Lauderdale, it was spring break,
Hmm.
and there was like, I was walking down the street one evening and there was like a bunch of dudes hanging out on the sidewalk, like shirtless and holding like phones and microphones up to each other, like interviewing each other on the street, like, making content.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Miami's supposedly a hub for this,
of course
correct?
it is. Yeah. Miami's like,
Hmm.
that is the, it's
Hmm.
probably the center point for looks maxing for sure. But, it's like, you know, I think there's the biggest concern I have is again, kind of going back to the idea of, if you're chasing virality versus looking for quality, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
you can, if you're just, let me throw something out there, see how people respond, and then I'll do more of the thing that people will respond favorably to and less of the thing that doesn't get a response.
Hmm.
You're just going to keep gravitating towards things that get a response out of people.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily that you're sort of like creating value in the world. You're
Hmm.
just capturing their attention.
Yes.
And the way our attentions work, you know, we are not, our brains are not evolved for the like TikTok, Instagram world that we live in. Like, our brains are evolved for um think like, you know, good food, opportunities to mate, um, love, care, respect, blah blah, are scarce resources,
Hmm.
right? And so when we see something that gives us that dopamine response, we gravitate towards it, even if it's not actually
Good for us.
qualitatively one of those things, which is like
Hmm.
slot machines, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, and so it's kind of like addictive behavior.
Hmm.
And so in that like attention economy where it's all about just getting more clicks, more likes, and all of that,
Hmm.
and you know it, I see that behavior all the time. Like, there is stuff, you know, uh, our son plays sports, and the teams he's on, the kids create like Instagram channels
Hmm.
and they post content to it, and some of it's like kind of cool. It's like, oh, this is like the insider, like, kids view of what it's like to play on a sports team, and a lot of it's just dumb. It's just like
Oh, yeah.
click
Yeah.
driving, behavior.
Some of
And
the stuff that's out there, I pause and think, why?
yeah,
Why? This is
because
not,
somebody's gonna look at it. That's why.
it's not
That's it.
entertaining.
Yeah.
It's not doing
Yeah.
anything for the world right
Right.
now.
But that is, it's not about like
Value.
value. And this is what's flipped too, because if
But
you,
do kids appreciate that, you think?
no, they don't
I wonder
understand it.
at what age does it, is there a shift in their thinking that this is vapid. I'm wasting time. This is going nowhere, and I'm
Well,
there's lost value in
yeah, I
this.
mean, at some point you need to, at some point you're gonna like look up and be like, oh, I'd actually like to have, a significant other. I'd like to have a good job and some material comforts and all of that.
Or
Um,
or even just talk to a human in real life and go play
yeah,
and do something
yeah,
that's more
but
meaningful
I mean,
than watching.
they're watching a lot of them, a lot of young people, a lot of kids are like, they're watching their childhood go by,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to have that time again, right? Because they're
Yeah,
scrolling
yeah.
scrolling the
You're
TikTok
only
tubes.
yeah, yeah. You're only
Um,
emphasizing it.
yeah,
I I think too, this goes back to other episodes we had about the the responsibility of parents like us and the role of the government to have restrictions. And you were saying this clickbait, blah 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 blah. Some of the messaging is so disappointing, and I also think that kids who hear this messaging who don't have protective factors in their world, maybe parents who have a different version of how girls and boys should be raised, and a school district that's supportive of equality and living in an environment that is supportive of positive messaging for both genders. It's or whatever, however you ascribe, right? That there are those who are going to be susceptible to this repeated messaging, even if they don't seek it out. Like, one of the things that keeps getting mentioned by this, the manosphere types, is that women, right, like their role is just to clean up after men, have their babies, be their sex toys, and get out of the way otherwise. That we have, we shouldn't be driving cars, we shouldn't be educated, that we've never created any. Look around this world. The bridges, the buildings,
yeah. That's just
the
insecurity.
technology. It's totally insecure. But if you hear that repeatedly, you start to believe it without even doing your own research. I actually did some research because I want our listeners to know how amazing women are. And this is just a very short list of things that I have. You're going to listen. No, you're going to listen because I am a strong and staunch feminist, and these are important things. Okay. Dr. Jane C. Wright was the first to identify methotrexate in 1951, which is a very important chemotherapy drug and used to treat a lot of cancerous tumors. Bet you didn't know that. The entire discipline of physical therapy was started by Mary McMillan, who was working with polio patients in the 1920s. Boom. And you know what? While it's still a female-dominated profession, about 30 to 40% of men are also physical therapists. Pulsars, you know what pulsars are? Rapidly rotating neurons. They were discovered by Jocelyn Bell Burnell in 1967. The dishwasher. Now that's a machine, if I've ever seen one. That was discovered by Josephine Conrad in 1887. It was first commercially successful dishwasher. Wow. Do you want to know about coding languages? Well, there were 9 developed by women, including ARC, COBOL, Logo. I could go on. The GIF.
No, no,
You know what GIFs are? No, I
all.
don't have them all
No.
because they're kind of boring.
Yeah.
But I will get that information for you later. The GIF, the image, whatever. I'm not a technology person. Invented by Lisa Gelobter. Gelobter. I have to look up that pronunciation. The DNA structure, Rosalind Franklin. She was a British molecular biologist who was instrumental in the discovery of DNA. Car heaters, crisp gene engineer editing, disposable diapers, like the list goes on and on and on. So those MFers can go F themselves. I'm going to keep this a little cleaner. This show we're allowed to say shit, but that's where I don't want my daughter and her friends and friends of friends hearing those messages, because it's also important for them to recognize that this
Well,
this
that's actually
this
brings
should
up an
not
interesting thing. That
confound how they're.
are they hearing those messages?
I would say that there is probably a subtle context around these messages being present in the world because there's stuff in the media, there's stuff on the social.
When you say the media, though, what does that mean?
Well,
Because our kids don't, they barely see what we consider media.
yes, I mean as far as news and TV, right? But I think in the sense that what they learn in school and what they're exposed to, they know that there's been a lot of political turmoil around, we've hear news reports of, well, everything that's going on with the Epstein files and sex trafficking and, people who are in this comes across. They're reading these current events in school about, this candidate is now stepping away from the race because of sexual abuse charges. Those things come across. And then, I don't think that they're listening to NPR or watching 60 Minutes or, on the BBC website, but I think they hear things that parents talk about, that teachers talk about, obviously social media. So I think it's this low-lying context of information that they might not be digging into, but they're subtly aware of. And I think they're also, aware of these influencers in a way that they don't recognize, because there's also this thing called the femasphere, which I would never support either because I think it's a backlash and is another extremist. But this extremist messaging infiltrates in some way, and that's where it gets a little icky, right? And so I think it's important to show up with intention to make them aware that this is not okay. And here's the truth of the matter, and we should be supportive of each other and know that these lies and these inflammatory messages should not be accepted. I don't think I need to go wave banners around, but I think it should be something we don't ignore. Why?
Well,
You,
I'm just thinking about,
you think I'm being dramatic
I'm
here?
just thinking about the historical success rate of middle-aged parents lecturing their teenagers about quote unquote the truth.
It's very effective.
Yeah.
No, but not in the way I'm going to sit them down and lecture them like, okay, guys, this is what I heard and I need to speak the truth. But more that there's positive messaging of the opposite, right? Okay, so say your kids in their social studies class and they're reading a current event, and I'm sure some of the stuff that our daughter has read about the Holocaust and even present day stuff around the stuff with our political parties and all that, I think she's aware of a lot more than we give her credit
Yeah.
for.
Well, both of our kids know that our president's a pedophile.
Yes, exactly. And they even make some comments about that in a way that you appreciate they know more than you give them credit for, or at least I would give them credit for. I don't think I dove that deep into it, especially in middle school. Like, I was like, who's president? But they're very aware of things, and I think when you hear those messages and they're not being addressed, right? It's sort of being swept under the rug and ignored or pardoned or not really brought to the severity of attention that it requires to address it in a way that, not even from a criminal aspect, but from, we think about this, the social, I'm having a hard time, giving it the right word, but thinking about it from this larger social context of what we're being told about not only the truth and how we're addressing the truth, but more of how we're holding people responsible for this behavior. And so I think it's important to share alternative messages and then go to to go back to they were in social studies, and go to your bio lesson and learn about, woman inventing DNA. And let's lean into that and spend the whole lesson on that, so that we don't get these missed messages that, men dominate the sphere of invention and engineering, and, women need to just change diapers and please men.
Okay.
You're just letting me rant for the sake of ranting.
Let it rip.
All right. Well, on that front, you were talking about specifics with our kids, but do you think there's any responsibility we have other than what I've just ranted about that you think would be important as far as messaging to our children, or how we actively reinforce or model
Yeah, I mean, just
better
role
behavior?
model, you know, role model decent human behavior. I mean, I think that ultimately, you know, it's just, it's hard for me to relate to the like, especially at this age, to the sort of male insecurity exploitation
Yeah.
stuff.
So maybe it's hard for parents to role model because of that.
Well, no, it's, I mean, just be yourself. Like, I don't, there's nothing to, there's nothing to do other than to just like, you know, in our household, you have, a very important job and a lot of professional qualifications. And we, you know, I think demonstrate mutual respect for one another at
Oh,
a
you meant me
professional and
actually?
intellectual level.
Were you saying
And
you as in like you, or me? Like you
I don't
as
even
in
know
me?
what you're talking about
You're
anymore. I'm talking about you.
okay, okay.
When I say me, I'm talking about myself. When I say you, I'm talking about you. So, um,
Rather than the royal you.
yeah, I'm not sure where you're going with that, but
I didn't know how specific you were being.
well, you asked a question about us as
Yeah,
parents.
yes,
So,
yes, yes.
um,
I asked about parenting.
yeah, but I mean, I can't solve the world. I can't solve, the dumb shit that, Clavicular or Andrew Tate or Logan Paul or Joe Rogan says. I mean,
HS
and
Tiki Taki.
and to a certain extent, like, you know, it, whatever's out there in the world, like our kids have to navigate and have to figure out what resonates with them, what doesn't,
Yeah.
but what I think the kids do see is they see, a man and a woman, a mother and a father who have a strong relationship and treat each other with respect
Mm-hmm.
and do some things that are like very much like within traditional gender roles, and then some things that are not,
Mm-hmm.
and sharing in some of those things.
I'm curious, what thing do you think you do that is not within your gender role?
Well, I'm not going to answer that question
I
because
want. Oh, why
no,
not?
I'm not going to answer that question because I know where this is going to
No, no,
lead.
no. I won't.
But
No,
like,
no. I'm curious. No
well, just
judgment.
pick one. Just pick like what is a good, like, sort of trad wife, like.
You pick it. I'll say what mine is. Mowing the lawn.
Yeah, mow the lawn. That's a good one.
What's yours?
So, um,
Dude, don't be afraid. Come
I'm
on.
not. It's not afraid.
I
This is a
won't
trap.
attack you. It's
It's a
not a
trap.
trap. I
Yeah.
won't. Promise. No
Yeah.
trap. No trap.
Cooking and cleaning in the kitchen. So you cook more meals than I do.
Cooking and cleaning in the kitchen only?
I'm not
What
going
about
down
the
this.
crawl
I'm
space?
not going down this rabbit hole with you. Um. So
I was going to say folding laundry because you're still not that great at it. But you do it.
I'm great at folding laundry. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't want you folding my clothes.
Yeah, I don't want you folding my clothes. So, um, you know, I I don't even know where
Oh
we're.
my God, there's so much slang too. How long do you think a word like trad wife has been around?
I don't know.
I only learned it like 6 months ago, I think.
Yeah,
That rock.
yeah, it's pretty dumb.
It's pretty dumb, or I'm pretty dumb.
No, the Tradwave thing.
Gotcha. Dumb being under a rock is not dumb. It's
But
actually
but
it's
here's the
a
thing.
great
This
idea,
is the thing.
people.
Like this is the thing is that if there are families where that is the
Totally.
expectation and that's how you want to live, and that's great. Like
That's fine.
if you have that agreement between
Mhm.
husband and wife, and that's the type of life that you as a woman want to live, and that's what the man wants to live, then have at it. Like that's
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
The problem is if it's someone who is like, you know like if you're a woman and you're trying to shame other women who don't live that lifestyle because you're insecure about your own choices, or you're a man and you're trying to like, overpower a woman into that lifestyle because, you think that that's the way people should live. It's like, you do not have a right to tell other people how they should live their lives.
No. I also think it's an important thing to consider before you get into a serious relationship
Absolutely.
because it will backfire.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you decide that's what you want. But if you're doing it because someone else told you that this is how you're supposed to live your life,
Mhm.
versus you saying, you know what, this is what I am most comfortable with, this is what I resonate
Mhm.
with, this is how I want to live my life, then have at it. Like you should
Mhm.
do that. You should
Mhm.
follow that dream and live your life the way you want to. But if you're doing it because someone else told you to do it, and I don't care if that someone else is dumbass podcasters, I don't care if it's like, you know, uh preacher at a church, a teacher, your peers, your parents, whatever.
Mhm.
No,
No.
man, live your own life.
No. Gotcha. So what are you still chewing on?
There's something about, I'm sure somebody's written about it, but the like the the selection of virality, like what, how certain things you think about, like, we were going back to, like, we were talking about um how anyone can create content now.
Yeah.
When you and I were teenagers, and I used to, like, we used to make some
Oh yeah, you made some
videos,
very
right?
dumb
We
videos.
made some dumb videos. But if you wanted to make like a dumb video with your high school buddies in 1997, you were taking out like the like high 8 mini camcorders, and you had to like charge the battery. You definitely didn't have like Bluetooth microphones and
No.
HD and all that stuff.
Probably recording over something your sister
You're recording
recorded.
onto tape, which those tapes you had to buy the tape, right?
Yep.
And then if you wanted to like edit it later, like editing is like specialized equipment,
Uh-huh.
and it was a process.
Uh-huh.
And then there was nowhere to publish it to. Like you could make copies of the tape and give it to your friends, which is what we did. But like
Or your
you
girlfriend.
didn't push it on the like onto the internet
No.
and have the whole world able to see it. So the the point was like you had to sort of come from like, there had to be kind of a thesis of like what you were doing before you
Yes.
did it, and you had to have an idea, and whether it was like humor or insight or just being a goofball or whatever, like you had to sort of come at it from some approach and have a plan and then execute the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then the feedback on it was coming from like 5 to 20 people. It wasn't coming from like a million people. So
Yes.
now you have the ability to just go, stick a camera in someone's face, do something dumb, instantly post it to the internet, and then if it gets a bunch of likes, it's like, cool, I'm going to try more of that.
Yeah.
And it becomes this sort of like natural selection of ideas.
Mhm.
But again, the ideas are not, they're not tacking towards like some ultimate truth or some like wisdom. It's just tacking towards what is getting people's attention in that moment, and
Yeah.
that little bit of dopamine to keep you scrolling and keep you looking at it. So it's like we have, when we were growing up, we had maybe like, let's say 75 TV channels that you could
Mhm.
watch, right? Now you have a billion
Mm-hmm.
TV channels you can watch, and it's every single person who's pushing content out on these
Yeah.
platforms.
So whoever gets seen, it's almost like the outlier,
Yeah,
the inflammatory stuff,
yeah.
the
Which is,
the
but
voyeuristic
there's
stuff.
good sides to it too, because you get,
Yeah, it's not all
there's
bad.
content that's created that's like, specific. I mean, it's like the stupid stuff with like the Vishlas. Like I see Vishla, people with Vishlas post pictures
Yeah.
and videos of their Vishlas doing the same things that mine does,
Uh-huh.
and there's this like 15 seconds of entertainment I get from a Vishla that looks an awful lot like mine
Vishla love.
doing some dumb Vishla thing. And,
Hmm.
so it does sort of draw out of, is there a way to sort of engineer virality in content that is like actually qualitatively valuable? And I
Hmm.
do think that we're going to go in that direction, because I think that we have,
How?
well, I think that
Who's gonna police it?
the most talented people,
Mm.
police has nothing to do with it. Nobody should be policing it.
No, I agree, but it almost
Aside
feels
from the
like,
like, illegal content.
yeah.
But the best, like the most talented people in producing content, again, go back to 1997. Like I couldn't make anything that was going to compete with MTV, right?
Hmm.
Or HBO or, CBS or whoever, right?
Hmm.
Because the professionals were doing that.
Yeah.
And I think when the social media kind of exploded and this whole like short form video content exploded, you had young people who weren't going to watch TV anyway. TV was not for them.
Yep.
All of a sudden, are drawn towards this new form of entertainment. And the content creators are similarly young or know how to present to that young audience.
Hmm.
And there's going to be this seismic shift of like, it's like people don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Live
young people
TV.
don't
Yeah.
watch TV.
No.
So the people that watch TV are going to die off, and then there's going to be nobody left watching TV. Everything is going to be this content. And
And
so content creators are going like
the
traditional,
expectations.
quote unquote, traditional media content creators are going to shift gears towards like, okay, we're going to make all of our content in this form. And you're seeing it a lot, like in this,
Yeah.
and especially as like, you know, some of the like media things that are happening with like CBS being taken over
Hmm.
by, Trump friendly people and
Hmm.
stuff like that, is like journalists are like, okay, the old sort of like,
Hmm.
newsroom model is dead,
Hmm.
but now I can go directly to the
Yep.
customer with short form content that I create
Yep.
myself. Production quality is like, production costs are a fraction of what it used to be. And the audience reach is way bigger, and I have so
Yeah.
much more control over
Yeah.
distribution.
Yeah, we're seeing that already, which is neat. I
Yeah.
think more for adult audiences though. And so what feels relatively ordinary?
I mean, I think two things. Like one is the Manosphere stuff is, it's just kind of, it's the yin and the yang again, right? Like I
Hmm.
think that the world has swung more towards, at least this world has swung more towards, feminine power, and there is a backlash from men who feel marginalized by it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more depth that we can get into on that, but I think, at the end of the day, this is a lot about, men feeling like they're like losing some of their place in the world, and it manifesting itself in some not the most wholesome ways.
Mm-hmm. What's frustrating for me as a woman is that in even within my generation, things like Title IX and in my sister, older cousins, and our parents' generation, our mom's generation, things that have changed as far as lending, banking, access, that you mentioned contraceptive. Like there's been these really positive shifts that I think are mutually positive, right? It's
Yeah.
not just for women. This has been to not see it as a threat, but that there's this mutual gain in having women join the workforce
Yeah.
in order to having family planning, balanced voices with the
I mean,
vote, and
that's the this is the thing that ultimately is gonna pull us out of this like dumb back and forth, is that actually the world is a better place.
mm-hmm.
We are a more peaceful, prosperous people, and the world is a better place if men and women have equal rights and equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And if I decide to be in a monogamous relationship with a female, and I'm gonna live my life that way, and I'm gonna have kids, I'm doing so because that's what I want. I'm not doing it because that's what I think I'm supposed to do, or like that's what the church told me to do, or a politician told me to do.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because that's what I want.
Yeah.
And I know that my partner
Mm-hmm.
feels the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a better way to live.
Yeah.
And it's all like insecurity and fear
Yeah.
that drives the I've got to control and dominate and do it a certain way.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately that's how we come out of this and be more healthy about it, because it's such a good thing.
Yeah. Well, and the way you just described it, this control, it just takes so much energy. It's kind of be exhausting, and it can't feel good to know that you're going so against the grain, and you have a lot of women in your life, probably most likely your mother, who is very disappointed in you. And not to mention, probably most men, most people in the world are like,
yeah, I mean, why
what?
would you want to live your life like angry and hateful? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
That doesn't seem relatively ordinary.
Yeah. So I had a second relatively ordinary thing. So just to make sure I close that point out. The second point is really just the simple, we've said this probably 5 times, but like, again, here we are, like, oh my God, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. What are they going to do? The next generation's going to figure it out.
Yep.
They're going to have some problems and they're going to have some strengths, and, the beat goes on. We do this all the time. That's
some good optimism that you don't often bring to the table.
I do. I mean, I kind of close out with the same thing every episode.
No. Yes, which is good, but meaning that you're not always the most naturally optimistic person.
That's pretty much untrue, but.
Oh, stop. I'd say you're 50-50.
I'm super optimistic.
I wouldn't say you're pessimistic. You're just like really the reality of the moment gets
realistic.
You're realistic. Yes. Yes. Okay. Sweet. Great episode. I know you didn't like my feminist rant, but it had to be done.
I think you set up the whole episode just to get that in there.
It was important.
Mm.
You have a daughter. You need to spout that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, when you start your own podcast, that's going to be Femsplaining with Betsy.
Yep.
You can bring some more guests on.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You can be a special guest.